Greetings, viewers. It's Matthew from Jazz Crazy Records reporting from the Jazz Bunker, and today I am very excited to share with you some new arrivals that you will be seeing on the channel over the next few weeks and months. So if you are interested in seeing some of the new African 78s that I've just gotten in and get a sneak preview of some of the cool jazz records I have in store for you, stick around. First of all, to all of the Jazz-Bos that watch the channel, I want to thank you for indulging me when I post non-jazz music from around the world. I know you're here for the jazz, and I want to give you the jazz. But I also, from time to time, stray into other musical realms, and I hope you find that interesting. So thank you for supporting the channel, even when I am crazy about something other than jazz. So let's get straight into today's topic, new arrivals. A few weeks ago, Alistair Johnson wrote on his Musicifan Facebook page that, quote, after I did the online interview with Matthew Wilson to promote Ngoma, the Soul of Congo, a, quote, DJ wrote asking me where to find 78s. I told him it was anyone's guess. He replied, do you take me for an idiot? And then called me a bunch of nasty names. Now, I read that and felt it was kind of weird for someone to react so negatively to someone as kind and generous with their knowledge as Alistair, who, it should be noted, does not collect 78s himself, but he does know that it's quite difficult to source them. And I believe all he was really saying was there's no one place that you can go to get these records. So I wanted to address the topic today of where to find African 78s to those who, like the misguided DJ, are looking for some secret hidden stash of 78s. The short answer is there is no easy way to find them. Alistair was absolutely correct. It's anyone's guess where they will turn up. I've never found an African 78 in the wild here in the United States, and that's over the last 7 or 8 years of collecting. All of the records that I've found have been from collectors and or sellers in either Africa itself or European countries like Belgium, the Netherlands, or France, which would make sense because those countries have historical relationships with Africa. Now, I have found an interesting record store called Diaspora Records, which can be found at diasporarecords.com, which I believe is located in France. It sometimes does have African 78s, and they definitely have a lot of African 45s and LPs. So there's one place to check out. Discogs and eBay are your other options. But know that some sellers are asking for insanely high prices for African 78s. I had mentioned to Alistair that I have recently had some really good luck finding some new African 78s, and he suggested that I do another unboxing video. So I'm going to show you some of the new arrivals, and more interestingly, we'll tell you the stories of where they came from and the effort in some cases it took to get them. Along the way, I will play you some samples from these records, just raw, right out of the turntable, just to give you an idea about what they sound like. And over the next few weeks and months, you'll get to hear all of them right here on the channel. So first up is a sort of hilarious story about how I came to acquire this record, Ngoma 202, which is very early in the Ngoma catalog. I saw this record for sale on Discogs last fall for only $15, which is a phenomenally great price for an early Ngoma record. The only problem was the seller was not in the United States and had his settings set so that you couldn't even try to buy it if you were not in an area that he would ship to. So he wouldn't ship to the United States for some reason. So I messaged the seller and I introduced myself and I asked about that particular record. I kind of let him know that I was really interested in it, let him know about my channel and some of the other videos I had done. He said all of his records came from his father's collection, and he was trying to rehome them all, but that he didn't think it would be feasible to ship to the United States. I told him that I have gotten records shipped from all over the world safely, and that I would be willing to guide him as to how to safely package the records and how to ship them, and would be willing to pay the extra shipping cost that he might incur. He finally said he'd be willing to do it, but the catch was he wanted me to look through his other records from his father's collection to see if there are any other valuable records in there that might be interesting to me personally or that he could sell to other collectors. So for about 3 weeks, every day I would get an email from this gentleman containing about 12 label photos of different records from the collection. I would let him know if I wanted any of them or if there were any of particular value to other collectors. During the course of this exchange, I kind of felt like I needed to buy some of these records just to grease the wheel and make sure it was a win-win for both of us. He was taking the trouble to box all these up and ship them internationally. So I took the trouble to try to help him identify some records in the collection that might be of value. So I ended up buying a few European dance bands. These aren't necessarily records I might seek out. This one I just thought had a super cool label. And I even bought this Hawaiian record, which I actually have, I think, on the Victor label already, but the label was cool. It's a Becca. And then also a Greek record on Parlophone. So he finally agreed to ship the Ngoma record and the others that I had picked out to the United States. I worked with him on helping to teach him how to package them and ship them safely. And that whole process from beginning to end took about a month and a half of probably 20 or 30 emails back and forth, a lot of conversations. And that's what I mean about just being vigilant and being patient when you were looking for African 78s. All of that I did for one record. Now, Ngoma 202, the artist on the disc is simply labeled Misambo Yabena Konzi Bakwatsika. So it is unclear who this is a recording of. In the catalog, it is surrounded by Adualinga and Window Records, so there must be an interesting story behind this recording. So next I was on a Facebook group of 78 collectors, and a gentleman from Europe posted that he had just picked up a bunch of African 78s. He posted a number of photos of them, and among them was one of my favorite records from Alistair's Soul of the Congo collection, a tune by Leon Bukasa called Monike Wababa. And if you remember from my interview with Alistair, that was one I asked him about in particular, and we listened to together. So that was kind of a holy grail record for me, something I really was interested in. But, you know, I didn't know the story behind why this gentleman posted the records or if they were for sale. So I just messaged him and struck up a conversation with him. I talked about that particular record, gave him some information I had about that record, and that the guitarist on the record, as Alistair informed us, was Papa Noel. And he said, well, I'd sell them to you if you're interested in. And so I initially made him an offer just on the one Bukasa record. I just didn't think I would be able to afford all of them. And he accepted, but he said, you know, if you want to buy all of them, I'll give you a great price on the whole deal. So I did. And wow, they're really in great shape and have all of their original sleeves. So first of all, we've got Ngoma 1787, which is Leon Bukasa Monike Wababa.
Mamane kutumona ekwaji kutuberia, mamane kutumona ekwaji kutuberia, bitubya kutupa bobikadi bishimine, bitubya kutupa bobikadi bishimine. Chaniwe, chaniwe, chaniwa kalom, chaniwe, chaniwe, chaniwa kalom.
We've got Ngoma 1829, also in a nice original sleeve.
Mamina, etula, ae, ae, ae. Ae, ae, ae,
We have Ngoma 1799, that is Henri Tinapa. We have another Henri Tinapa Ngoma 1800. And this group also included some records from the Fiesta label with some of the coolest sleeve design I've ever seen. Look at this gorgeous sleeve. And so this is Fiesta 503. Next we have Fiesta 402. This is Edouard Masengo.
Oboni unatoka wapi? Unatoka Kamikolobondo. Edo natoka wapi? Ninatoka Kamikolobondo, Albertville.
And as you see, when I get records like this, what I'll do is I have a regular sleeve in the back here, and that's holding the actual record. And then in the front, I slide in the original sleeve and then put it all in plastic. That way, you know, sometimes when you put a record in an original sleeve, it'll start tearing the sleeve at the bottom or on the edges. And, you know, taking it in and out of the sleeve over the years can cause damage to the sleeve. This way, you've got that nice look of it being in an original sleeve, but it's actually in a normal sleeve right behind there. And then finally, I have a Gallotone by Fred Kish that features guitar and bottle. I've heard a number of really cool African guitar records that feature an accompaniment that is simply a glass bottle. And I have to say, it's a great sound. And if all of that were not enough, that was one lot from one Facebook post. The seller was so delighted that I took the whole lot that he decided to throw in a bonus disc, which was super nice of him. So here is the bonus disc. It appears to be from a larger album or set from a French museum in the Department of Musical Ethnology. There's side 1, here's side 2. One side appears to be from the Malay Peninsula in modern-day Malaysia, and this side appears to be from New Caledonia. So that was a super cool bonus from that deal. If you want to collect 78s, you just need to have these kind of conversations with people and let them know what kind of music you're interested in, what kind of music you're looking for. There are a lot of sellers out there that just pick stuff up and then look for buyers. Not everyone wants a massive dragon horde of 78s. You know, some people are actually sane. So if you're interested in 78s, be curious about the music, be kind to people. I know most would rather their records go to a good caretaker who will appreciate them than a flipper who's going to try to make money off them. But you just have to take time to build relationships with people. I mean, I may never buy another record from this gentleman, but maybe 6 months from now, he sees some more records in a flea market and remembers me and picks them up and then shoots a message to me to see if I'm interested in buying more. You just never know. The world's a small place. Now, if you don't have the patience or the time or the empathy for transactions like that, there's always straight up buying on platforms like eBay or Discogs. And of course, I do that too. I have a couple of eBay purchases to share. The first one is also an Ngoma release. This is Ngoma 1165. And this one also came with an original sleeve.
Kanano de Boyela, Elizaeti Kanano de Boyela, Ijalena no Mistika Pona Kobima, Ijalena no Mistika Pona Kobima.
This next eBay purchase is pretty special, and I'm very excited to share it with you. I was just running some random searches on eBay one day. It wasn't even a saved search. It was just me going on and, just kind of casting a net out to see if there was anything new that had come up on the site. And I came across an auction for this gorgeous Loningisa record with an original sleeve. Now, for those of you who don't know, Loningisa was one of the big early record labels in Belgian Congo in the late 40s and early 50s, the other two being Ngoma and Opika. Now, I did not have any Loningisa records in my collection, so this was a big opportunity, and I ended up winning the auction for only about 75 euros. So this is probably the most expensive record you will see today, but I felt it was justified. You just don't see these come up very often, and the fact that it had this lovely original sleeve along with it felt like it was worth it. And look, there's a photo here of none other than Henri Boulain. There he is, and just such a super cool sleeve. And the other side of the sleeve has different photographs. So there's actually, it's a double-sided sleeve with 6 different photographs of Loningisa recording artists. So this, wow, this is like one of my top eBay purchases of the year for sure when it comes to African 78s.
Now
Now, if you do like Loningisa releases, there is a bit of a secret that I will share with you. Many of the Loningisa catalog was reissued by EMI on the HMV label in the LON series. These seem like they're a little easier to find than the original Loningisa 78s. And I have a couple here that I bought from a seller in Africa who I met through various connections in the collector community. So both of these, I believe, are Franco with the OK Jazz. So here we have HMV 1081 in the LON series. And then here we have a slightly rougher copy of HMV LON 1093. Now, this same seller had a number of records that I ended up buying. I'll show you just a couple of them. One was a label that I really had not seen a whole lot of, the Elsko Disc record label. And this is marked as a rumba by Marguerite Yalala. The same seller had a number of Ngoma records, so I ended up getting everything he had left, which included, here is a record by a singer accompanied by Leon Bukasa. This is Ngoma 1643. I've got a Frank Lassan record. This is Ngoma 1654.
Ataole narutu sheri, bobotana loboko sese, atayo kena foto mami, kongo se ayo sheri ae, atomatili kolo ya, suka yango seko kita, yebaka mokili makaramba, mainde abato sheri ae.
I've got a great record of G. Eduard Oliveira and H. Fritas. This is Ngoma 1717. Lauren Batubenge. This is Ngoma 1768. these are from the late 50s, this last batch. Then we have Henri Tinapa Ngoma 1802.
Kama munataka mumulize sepo, nizowe zilango ninalizoweya, nizowe zilango ninalizoweya. Heya, acha karamba rumba.
And finally, we have a band, a Cha-Cha Ngoma 1863.
Salambongo, Kudiambongo, Inekele, Basoya Banaleyo. Salambongo, Kudiambongo, Inekele, Basoya Banaleyo.
All of them are in pretty nice shape, and I can't wait to digitize them and share them with you. Now, finally, the seller mentioned that he had just procured a number of Kenyan records, but they were in really rough shape, and he didn't consider them even worthy of selling. All of them were in what I would say condition range from V- to V+, which in 78 world, that's pretty average. V- maybe might be a grade that might not make it onto a channel like this because it just might be too noisy, although I have done a few. Now, one of them you'll already recognize. This is one that I digitized about a month ago that you've probably seen on the channel. And these labels, again, some of these labels I just have never seen before. Here's a really special one that will be coming onto the channel later this week. This is the guitarist George Mukabi.
Onda watu wengi wanastupidi wao, onda watu wengi wanastupidi wao, ati wanasema anashinda mama yake, lakini kumbuka kweli yule mama yako.
Now this record is got some groove distortion in it, but still quite listenable, and you'll have to tell me later this week when you hear it what you think of it. But Mukabi is just a wonderful, masterful, legendary guitarist. So worth saying. Some more William Osale records on CMS.
Jana nimweleze mambo ya wasichana ni ngumu. Jana nimweleze mambo ya wasichana ni ngumu.
Another William Osale record on a label I have never seen before.
Pata chakula ni vizuri, fanya kazi, tutapata chakula. Ni vizuri, fanya kazi, tutapata chakula. Ni vizuri, fanya kazi, tutapata chakula.
Another guitarist, Sammy Okechi, on the Vedis label, Vedis.
Kajira wote wanalia, wao walifariki, majira wote wanalia, watoto wao walifariki, odongo, dofu, streti, omukweso.
This is Akech Oyoshi with Odongo Eli on the Furaha label. Another William Osal on the Jogu label.
Naona watu wanasema, tulionawili kule Tanzania.
Another guitar with bottle accompaniment by Arthur Okwemba and Jimmy Bingwa on a really pretty label.
Huyu hata na Jimmy Bingwa wana ujuzi wa muziki wetu Bunyore.
This is Fanuel Amino, also on the Mwangaza Music Store label.
Mama huyo aliuliza, jirani zangu manionea, mimi huyu sina na shamba, mimi huyu sina na mali, mimi huyu sina na bwana.
Henry Misango, guitar and vocals on the same label. And then finally, another Furaha, Humphrey Eshtuli and James Atanda.
Hayo ni makumbusho, asili ninakumbuka, babu alipata ule muji wa Moshi, alienda Tanzania kwa tabu ya mavazi, jameni mavazi, warisha vijana.
So those Kenyan records, again, many have some issues. They all contain some amount of groove distortion and or scratches. Scratches I can deal with. Groove distortion's quite hard, but still very listenable copies. And I just can't imagine where I would even begin to look for some of those titles. So I've just been incredibly lucky over the last 6 months. All of these African records making their way here into the Jazz Bunker. Very exciting, very exciting. Now, don't let me forget there is jazz in the Jazz Bunker as well. I wanted to show you a couple of cool records that I've got coming up on the channel. The first one is pretty interesting, and let me just get it out of its sleeve here. This is an Aretino record. They were designed by the maker of a type of phonograph called the Aretino, and they've got a very big hole in the middle of the disc. And this was in part because Victor and Columbia had certain patents, and so you get a number of record companies in the early 20th century, like 1900 to say 1908, that are trying to build these competing types of records that will only play on their phonograph. And this Aretino, I'm not sure if you're going to be able to see this or not, but it is the Maple Leaf Rag, played by Wes Osman on banjo. Maple Leaf Rag, of course, is a quintessential ragtime composition, and played by Wes Osman on banjo on the Aretino label. I've got what is probably the most difficult label to photograph, which is the National Music Lovers. There we go. If you get a little light on it, it's a little easier. It's the National Music Lovers in New York label. Now you might be thinking, the Master Melody Makers, never heard of them. Well, that's the Fletcher Henderson Band. And this happens to be from the first Fletcher Henderson session after Louis Armstrong left the band. So this is kind of a unique moment in history to hear the Henderson Band right after Satch leaves their ranks. Now, occasionally I will find records that I already have, but I have find upgraded copies. And this is one that I have a very soft spot in my heart for. This is one of the first early jazz or ragged jazz records that I just absolutely loved. And some people kind of disparage this record a bit, but here it is. It is Slippery Hank by Earl Fuller's famous jazz band. And this record is insane. It is punk rock. It's so fun to listen to, and I found an E+ copy. The other upgrade copy I found was a really nice Victor scroll of Eddie South, who is an amazing jazz violinist. There's the B-side. That's also a really nice E+ copy of that I think I got off of Discogs. Another jazz record we have coming up that I'm excited to share. This is a record that I have been looking for 3 or 4 years, and that is the original Memphis 5 on Edison. This is Edison 51246, and on one side we have the Jelly Roll Blues, of course by Jelly Roll Morton, and on the other side we have A Bunch of Blues. So we will be hearing from the original Memphis 5 on Edison, and of course Edisons, if you didn't know. Perfectly fine to play on a normal turntable. You just need to rewire your cartridge so that the vertical grooves can be heard with clarity. Right, I told you there'd be some good jazz. Aren't you glad you held out and waited, or maybe some of you skipped ahead? I also have a cool early blues record, and as an Iowan, I always love finding Claxtonola records. And of course, here we have blues artist Kate Crippen with her jazz artists. And of course, as you see, this record made in Iowa City, Iowa by the Claxtonola Company, which is actually the Bernard Manufacturing Company. They made furniture, they made phonographs, and like Paramount, after making furniture and photographs, they decided to also make records. So that title was licensed, I think, from a Paramount master. The first records I did a proper digital transfer of on the channel was a record by David Nelson and his Kingsmen, and I finally have found his other Victor scroll. So David Nelson and his Kingsmen, this is Victor 23039 from January of 1931. So this is a Deep Depression cut. This will be fun to have on the channel. Speaking of the Victor 2300 series, I also have a Duke Ellington record from the 2300 series. This is Victor 23022. We've got Old Man Blues on one side and Jungle Nights in Harlem on the other. That is in really nice condition. So that's something else to look forward to on the channel. I just also upgraded my copy of Louis Armstrong and his Hot 5 doing the Weary Blues. So we'll be putting a transfer of that together. Always love finding Hot 5 records at reasonable prices. Getting harder and harder these days to do, especially in nice condition. finally, as many of you know, I'm a big Clarence Williams fan, as well as being a big fan of a number of people. But Clarence Williams is someone I particularly love. And as any Clarence Williams fan knows, some of his best records were released on the QRS label. And I've put a couple on the channel before, but I finally got one more to add. This is goes by the name of the Barrel House 5 Orchestra, but it basically is Clarence Williams' washboard jug band, featuring Ed Allen, Arvo Harris, and Floyd Casey on the washboard. So there's the second side of that. So Scufflin' Blues on one side and Nobody's Business on the other. This, it's a little rougher around the edges, some groove distortion, some scratchiness, but gosh, what a great record. Finally, I've got a couple special test pressings. I believe they are. This first one, so these are vinyl. This is not shellac. This is vinyl. The first one is an artist named Jimmy Wade, and this is a tune called the Mississippi Wobble. That's on one side. The other side is Junie Cobb doing the Endurance Stomp. So I've got a really nice, pristine, what I believe to be test pressing of those sides. These may have been made by John R.T. Davies. I'm not sure about that. Don't quote me on it. Second of all, we have test pressing number one. Again, Junie C. Cobb and his grains of corn. First, Shake That Jelly Roll on side one. And on side two, we have Don't Cry, Honey. So Junie Cobb, some really great early jazz. I believe both of these were originally released on the Vocalion label in the 1000 series, if I'm not mistaken. Those we have coming up. And again, when you get a test pressing like this, again, it's almost like getting a master pressing or an E++ copy of one of these old shellac records. Obviously, I love getting originals when I can, but wow, for doing transfers, test pressings are absolutely amazing. I've got other stuff in store for you. I've got a video on grading 78s that I've been working on literally for 3 months. So that is coming up. If you want to know how to grade 78s, or if you just want to watch me attempt to grade 78s, stay tuned for that one. I have a really great video planned on an artist who just find to be one of the unsung heroes of early jazz in the 20s in Harlem. and that is Charlie Johnson. And I have, over the last year, collected almost all of Charlie Johnson's recorded output. And I am putting together a special show on Charlie Johnson. And I think that will be really fun to watch. And along the way, we'll be doing transfers of all of those records. And also talking about the history of the Charlie Johnson band at Sal's Paradise in Harlem. He is not someone who you hear a lot about. He is not someone who there are any big books written about. Charlie Johnson, Cecil Scott, some of these other band leaders in Harlem in the 20s sometimes get overlooked. And so I've got a big video planned on that, which I hope you will find interesting. So that is what is coming up on the channel. I hope it is interesting to you. I hope you are excited as I am to share it with you. And so that's all I got. Have a great day, and I will see you real soon right here on the Jazz Bunker. This is Matthew from Jazz Crazy Records signing out.